Hi, Randy.
Hi, Malcolm.
How you
I'm not,
doing?
I'm not Margaret. I'm using Margaret's computer.
Okay. How you doing, my friend? How's
I'm just
everything?
boss. I got a friend that's like on his deathbed. I got to go pick up some pot and take it to him here.
Oh, okay. Sorry to hear about that.
Uh,
So, um,
we starting now?
yeah, we're rocking and rolling.
Okay.
Okay.
What a good note to kick off with. May as well have been playing taps.
Yeah. Um, so Randy, I guess what I really want to focus on and talk about with you is Julian's verdict coming up on is it Monday, right? The 20th.
Yeah, I guess that's the verdict. I don't know if they're going to allow the appeal to continue or what. I have no idea. If you judge by past performance, like a race in form, you would say that they're going to deny it and you know push the can down the road a little bit. But I don't expect him to be getting out that day. It's too difficult to predict
Hmm.
unless you go by their past performance, and then of course you have to conjecture that they're surmise that they're just saying, "All right, we've had them for 5 years, let's boot them over there." But it's a quandary for the administration because it's the last thing that this dying president needs is another, you know, huge problem, and that is, you know, his onslaught on the free press.
Hmm.
That's what this will be. And I don't know if they're smart enough to understand that, but you've got that the way, and then he's got the CIA and the national security state that are insistent that this guy come over here, particularly at this critical juncture for them. The U.S. is losing it around the world. The empire's fading, and we've got wars planned. And so, with that in mind, he's, you know, they don't want anyone talking about it. They don't want anybody exposed. And if you see what's going on at these universities, it's, basically against the law to protest against genocide. I mean, so that the U.S. is complicit in. It's against the law, basically. They're going in there and breaking heads for people protesting the bombing of heads from the air in Gaza. So, and West Bank. Uh, I don't know. You become very cynical after a while. You know,
Well,
it's
it's
been a
hard.
long struggle. I mean, it's just been a long struggle with Assange.
Well,
And there's never been a positive moment. It just continues to descend downward. Whatever, the only way you can go is descend is downward, and that's the way this has gone from the time he was kidnapped and renditioned into Belmarsh, and then subsequently tortured and put through this outrageous, uh, supercilious, 5-year legal process. I'm sorry, you can jump in now.
no, I was just going to say that when I was with you back in, I guess it was February, on the truck driving around New York City, one of the things that really struck me, and we talked about it, was just the sort of indifference on a certain level to his case. People were either, oh yeah, whatever happened to him. Like it seems like the powers that be have literally created a situation where he's become sort of the forgotten.
Right.
They've just managed to bury him in the public mind, and
Well,
I think that's really the intention.
they demonized him and vilified him with all sorts of false accusations. And but most people don't know because people don't know anything. These students know something. You see them on the street when it comes to Gaza. You don't see them on the street when it comes to Ukraine and the proxy war there. You only see them on the street when it comes to Gaza. And but you don't see anybody on the street for Assange. I know it's been difficult. People don't know. I take the subway all the time, and everyone's on their cell phone. They've become numb, mentally, uninquisitive, because they're just like getting that instant buzz from their cell phones. And I'm talking about it's the new opium dens,
Mhm.
subways. It's like people used to read newspapers, magazines, and books. Who were going from Manhattan out to Coney Island. Now they're just all on their cell phones, not looking at one another, just staring at this thing like a 3-year-old does, with Tonka toys, you know. And at least Tonka toys, you're building something, learning how to build. So it's even worse. You're just like totally buried in your cell phone, that's doing some kind of brain damage electronically, but visually, what you're seeing and reading is instant gratification type of stuff, and they're not getting educated, and they're just people are not great orators anymore. They're not great conversationalists anymore, and they're just not inquisitive. They don't care about Julian Assange. That's not popping up at the top of their cell phones, the Julian Assange case. So, I mean, the public is illiterate on it. And you take a look at this Congress, Supreme Court, the president. I mean, they're all so corrupt. Uh, there's nobody there. We have George Galloway now in the House of Commons and Jeremy Corbyn. We don't have anything like that here. That is smart enough and actually has uh, the wisdom and the determination to speak out. And the ability to speak out in a way that communicates. We don't have that. There's
Mhm.
nobody that cares. They don't have the integrity. Uh, I'm not even sure if it's an integrity thing. They're just uh,
I think
well,
there's a lot of fear out there. Fear of
well,
being, you
well,
know,
the Israeli thing, yes, and even the Ukrainian thing, yes. But I have someone that I know from Utica, Claudia Tenney, who actually is owned by AIPAC, but she voted against the Ukrainian package, which I found to be contradictory for her, being that she's such a militarist. But with the Israeli stuff, everyone is fearful of Israel. The mayor of New York City is fearful. Our congressional delegation, Democrats, Republicans, are fearful of Israel. And so you sick the dogs, the police on them, and you know, and they're being beaten up because they're opposing daily strikes. And just in the last hour, 28 people got killed, women and children, queuing for water in Gaza and in northern Gaza, and another 20 got killed in their apartments, whole families. I mean, it just happens every single day. And they won't speak out against it. They won't speak out against it because, uh, you know, uh, they have a political price to pay. And so
Mhm.
they prefer to stay in office, get the perks, and uh, and this this charade of power. They have no power. If they had any power, they would go against it. So that's it. And it's the whole Congress is basically a satellite of the Knesset, you know, and it's demoralizing at times. You don't see any silver lining, any light at the end of the tunnel. It just drags on. And getting back to Assange, which is what we're supposed to be talking about today, he exposed war crimes. People who are exposing war crimes right now I mean, crimes against humanity, genocide, ethnic cleansing in Gaza are treated like criminals. And so and that's a different government, a different country. So you got Julian Assange who exposed war crimes by this country, and it's intolerable to the power structure here
Mhm.
that someone did that and embarrassed them. And more than that is the fact that he exposed mass surveillance, by the CIA. We know the NSA already does it, and the FBI already does it. But these Vault 7 revealed so many frightening vehicles of mechanisms of mass surveillance being utilized by the CIA that I think it got under their skin, and they don't like to be burned. And so, you know, if we can't tolerate people speaking out against Israel, imagine they're not going to tolerate somebody speaking out and exposing the kind of crimes that the U.S. committed, and that would be Julian Assange has done that. And they're just going back to the original thought by you that there seems to be a malaise out there. Yes, I've spent 200 friggin' days on a truck out there. I know that people don't know that there is a dearth of enthusiasm for Julian Assange's case. All right, but look where we live. We don't live in a literate country. We live in a dystopian country, and people are not interested in other people's problems, particularly his. I mean, there's no moral outrage by it. This is 2024 is a very retrograde period of time to be living as a human being, particularly in the United States, which is really the center of all evil. But then again, it was the most powerful. It's certainly not. It's losing all of that power, and it doesn't like to go down, losing that power easily.
Well,
And
no, empires never do. I mean,
no,
they always go down kicking and screaming.
right? That's what we're doing right now, and so are the Brits. And that's why you see so much repression, domestic repression in all of Europe, because Europe is fading as as an entity. I mean, remember Brussels used to control a lot of Africa, and
Mhm.
Spain controlled a lot of the world, and
Well, England ruled the waves.
the whole world for 500 years. I mean, so all of these, Portugal had a big piece of the pie. All of these empires have faded. France is like so desperate, they're sending troops to New Caledonia. You know what I mean? To keep that little piece of empire they still have left. But they're fading in Africa. All these countries are basically retracting in size, if that's the right word. They're recoiling in size and power. And so it's hard to see it horizontally. You got to get on top of that, that proverbial mountain top, and take a look at what's going on, um, and really get a clear sense of what's happening. Or historically, when this era is over, you can look back and see it a lot clearer than we can swimming through it. You know.
Mhm. Well, there's a couple of different laws that have been, I don't know if they've been passed, but the anti-TikTok thing was just kind of astounding for a start.
Yeah,
Um,
well, look who did it. Look who was one of the progenitors of it, one of the promoters of it, and that is Hakeem Jeffries, who used to be a legislator up in Albany. And I worked with the guy on the Rockefeller drug laws when he was an assemblyman. Now he's the House Minority Leader, and he's one of the ones in the House that is pushing this anti-TikTok legislation. And why? Because somebody's paying him to do that, paying his campaign to
yeah,
do that.
of
He has
course.
no moral sense of what's going on. He has no sense. He has no clue. All right. He's a robot. Listen to him talk. He's just a robot. That's AI. He's basically AI, right? They infuse him with something to say and he says it, almost like a human being. But look, they're worried China is fast passing the US, if they haven't already, as the number one economic power on the planet. The US has got $33 trillion in debt. We are a naked man at a bar with a gun. That's it. And no clothes and no cash. That's it. We got the gun. And all we can do is hold up people. We can't build. We don't build anything. We got a gun. We can shoot and take, but we can't build. China builds. We bomb, you know?
Yeah, I had a very interesting conversation a month and a half ago with a guy that I met, um, who's from Nigeria, and he was talking about the influx of Chinese investment and infrastructure that's happening throughout Africa, not just Nigeria. And it kind of struck me that their approach is to give something in return as opposed to just taking, which is what our Western colonization structure has been for over 500 years. We just take, 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 and people are sick of it. They're like, hey, like
We
you can't.
loan and take. We also loan like a loan shark and then take. All right. That's
Yeah,
another way of taking. We loan like a mob guy, knowing that they can't pay back, and then the interest is like what Don Corleone would charge.
right,
You
exactly.
know, so
So, and then the other piece of legislature that I guess is stunning to me is this anti making any criticism of Israel anti-Semitic by definition, and therefore it's a hate crime to actually simply criticize. Now it's Israel today, but it could be United States tomorrow. I mean, we don't know where this kind of thing can go. It just seems like once you let that sort of genie out of the, yet it's very strange to me because a lot of the people that are supporting this nonsense are also these First Amendment sort of people who are like, you know, well, we believe in free speech, yet we're doing just about everything we can to make that impossible almost. It's as one of my
it
favorite.
shows you how much power AIPAC has, the Israeli lobby has, and the power that Israel has over, our politics. That's all that shows is that, laws are something that you pay for. All right. So they pay, they extort, and that's what they get are these laws that are being paid for. And that's a quid pro quo
Mhm.
from these organizations like AIPAC, or they will do the same thing. The kryptonite allegation of anti-Semitism uh, always seems has worked in the past. I think it's losing. It's at the point now where it doesn't have any power when someone calls it anti-Semite, because they know it's just an ad hominem. It doesn't really have any weight to it. Look what but it hurt Jeremy Corbyn. It hurt Roger Waters for a while. He stood up against it. They've all been vindicated. They foresaw what was happening, and by not speaking out, the people that were bought by these super PACs, and by APAC in particular, and by the Israeli power, it's turned into a genocide right now. So it was occupation. It was an open air concentration camp, and now it's turned into a genocide. And all of these people forewarned that that would happen, and they were neutralized by these bogus charges of anti-Semitism. It's so outrageous. It would be, I'm an Italian American. Anyone that says anything bad about the fascists going into Abyssinia in 1933 or 34, and massacring a bunch of unarmed people. And they say bad things about Italy. I'm not going to call them anti-Italian. I don't consider them bigoted, because I would agree with them, just like so many Jews in this country agree with me about what's happening over there. So you're not bigoted if you against Italians. If you have something critical to say about Mussolini, why should anyone be considered anti-Semitic? Because to say something about a country, that and a kind of a Jim Jones kind of religion, but a violent one, it's Zionism, uh, condemning it. You know what I mean? Condemning it. And it has nothing to do with race or religion. It's just the whole term. I mean, the whole concept of Zionism is racism. So you can't call someone that criticizes racism, you're saying you're anti-racism. If you say that, you're not anti-Semitic, you're anti-racism by opposing Zionism. That's what it really is. It's not anti-Semitism, it's anti-racism. So if you oppose Zionism, you're an anti-racist. All right. But they turn it into something different, something negative. So being anti-racist is negative. That's what it is. I mean, that's what they've made it into.
Yeah,
And,
well, up is down and down is up, and in
yeah.
is out and out is in. I mean, the dangerous aspect of this whole you know, to me, the trajectory of what's now happening with Gaza and the Palestinians is inevitable. It was written into the rules. I mean, genocide is the natural outcome of what they've been doing there for over 100 years. But my point really is simply that, you know, first of all, the term anti-Semitic has been neutralized in many ways, which is very dangerous, actually, because there is anti-Semitism and real anti-Semitism. Okay, let's not
It's
forget
by
that.
the people that created Israel. They're the ones who are anti-Semitic. You know, the Brits didn't want Jews in their country, and the U.S. didn't want Jews in this country. They didn't want to give them a homeland. They could have put put Israel inside of Bavaria or something, or carve out the land after 1945, or put. They want to have a big land. Then take it, and you can take a big swath of Montana.
Well,
No,
was
no
it you?
European country wanted that. Australia didn't want it. So they put them in a place that would only create problems.
Was it you that said they should just make it move Israel to Florida? I mean, that would make
I don't think I said that, but I said, but there's plenty of other places, but not there. I mean, look, Jews were for 2,000 years got along with Arabs there. I mean, there was no like fights between
no.
everyone lived together for
It's a
thousands of years, and until 1948, and they were put in, and then they just made it a Jewish state, even though that was Palestine. They could have just, all right, move in and share all of the land, and they would have welcomed them and build their own territory, build their own stuff there, but don't get guns and fight against the Palestinians that were already there.
hmm. Let's talk about something. Um,
And it has nothing to do with Julian Assange, I suppose. Although if he was
well,
operating right now, they'd say there'd be a lot of things that. But he first of all, he wouldn't be getting the kind of material caches of material through WikiLeaks anymore. People would be afraid to give it to him, so they shouldn't be fearful of that. But if he was operating without being bothered the last 5 years, can you imagine the treasure trove of information that would have been passed to him from whistleblowers that could have exposed what's going on right now within all of these secretive government agencies that are part of each respective security state apparatus?
well, what I wanted to ask you about, you mentioned something earlier in the conversation about this kind of uh, notion that you see people protesting and waving Palestinian flags and wearing keffiyehs and the rest of it for Palestine, yet they don't have the same connection with what's happening in Ukraine.
Well, because they don't see it. They can't see it. I mean, it's easier to see, and it's deadlier than Ukraine, except for, unless you're Ukrainian. I mean,
Yeah.
600,000 dead in Ukraine because of the proxy war. Thousands are dead in the Donetsk People's Republic, and those Russian Federation countries now that were once part of Ukraine. Russian-speaking, Russian-cultured parts of the country have been blasted for 10 years. They don't know about it. I don't know what it is about what you see on a daily basis in Gaza. I mean, it's hard for people to watch that without acting. If you have any conscience at all, a lot of people I know, I can't watch it anymore. Why can't they watch it? Because they know they can't do anything, or they don't want to do anything. So you see this, and you see children. You see it's a very educated society. It's a very cultured society being killed on a daily basis. I mean, the numbers are just so many women and children, and And why are they protesting this and not Ukraine? Because it's been framed in a different way. You know, I suppose. And one thing, they sold us on a bill of goods that Russia was it was unprovoked special military operation, which it wasn't. It was provoked. It was started. They armed Ukraine. They had a coup there and all of that. And if they only understood where this is going right now, it could lead to something worse than what's happening in Gaza, and that's the end of the world. And 2 billion children dying and 3 or 4 billion women dying at one time. The way it is going, the way this is being escalated from these dying institutions like NATO and the US and the UK and the EU, dying empires, at this point, desperately trying to salvage whatever is left of what they consider their property.
Mhm.
So I don't. It's. I have to give it a lot more thought. Why it's because it's right in your face every single day, and you're seeing this stuff every single day. If people were to see, like I saw in Donetsk, shelling of villages there, open markets, and all of that. But it was not anything like what's happening right now. You see these children coming in buried in rubble. I mean, hospitals, all of that. It's in your face every single day, no matter what. And so that's the reason why these students are acting there. I think that most of them are unaware of the nuances of what's happening in Ukraine. I mean, I feel bad that 600,000 people got foisted into this conflict, conscripted and thrown into the meat grinder on behalf of these military, ghoulish military contractors and all of that, and the people that they control, their legislative leaders, and the president, they control him. And so the weapons go and they kill people and they make a profit and they want that money. And so they've been able to hide it and hype it, nonstop for 2.5 years. Russia, the Russophobia has been, it's like 1917 with the Germans and then against the Soviet Union in 1919, the same kind of hype in the 50s, the Red Scare. So the same kind of disinformation, gaslighting the country's conscience or psyche, has led to people not really understanding what is happening in Ukraine. But the people that really look into it, they understand what's happening. But it's not. It certainly has not permeated the college environment at this point in time. But look, they're the only ones out there on a regular basis for Gaza. I mean, you look in the 60s, people were out there. If there wasn't a draft, you would have like 1/10 of the people at these demonstrations at Columbia and Kent State in the 60s and 70s if there had not been a draft. All right. So there's not a draft right now. And you see a lot of people showing up anyway, but you don't see other people showing up who are of draft age participating in these demonstrations.
Well, I think there's an undercurrent to these demonstrations that goes, in my mind, for much further than the issue of Gaza and the Palestinians. I think it's safe to say that most of these younger people, are what are known as Gen Z. They're not even millennials anymore. The millennials have grown up and they're having
I don't even know the
children.
term between Gen X, Gen Z, millennials. I'll be honest with you. That's how out of it I am. I don't know, which is which. I know baby boomers, and then the lexicon ends there.
Well, I think I once heard an interesting interview with a woman who'd written a book called, and she calls the generation that was born sort of after the millennial generation, the I generation. In other words, these are people who've grown up since like the first generation that's had these in their hands, from a very early age. Like they've never not known a world without that. Like my
Right,
daughter, my
right.
daughter's 33 years old. she didn't have one of these until, she was probably 20, whereas these,
I was at a birthday party today, and the kid's 7, and he's had it since he was in his crib. You know what I mean?
right. And so I think there's an undercurrent there of, I think these kids, like, they're more aware of what's going on in the world than previous generations.
Well,
Uh,
there's where cell phones actually are beneficial. All right, go ahead. I didn't mean to interrupt you. Yeah.
well, all I mean to say is that they're more. There's two studies have been shown. First of all, they're more aware and they're more concerned, but on the other hand, they suffer more from depression because the more you know, the more depressing it gets. So I think they have a kind of an approach to things as saying, we don't really have a future. So we've got nothing to lose. You're telling me, oh, I'm going to lose my semester at Columbia. I'm not going to get my degree this year. They're like, we don't really care. Like, we
And
don't.
what are you going to learn? Where are you going to go with it? I mean,
That's my point. That's my point.
I suppose if you take computer science, that's one way the universities are good for, because those seem to be the only jobs that pay anything these days.
So, so I think there's a kind of a willingness to sacrifice that, the more you have, the more you fear to lose. So when you don't have a lot to lose, you can actually become quite fearless, I think.
All the leaders of the Sandinistas were highly educated people. The people, Ortega and the other 7 or 8 of the directors were very well educated people that led, that march into Managua on July 19th, 1979, and but they had nowhere to go. And if they went to Costa Rica, you know what I mean? There was nowhere, nothing to do there unless you worked as a campesino, with that education, unless you did something that was unsavory in life. Like, I mean, what are these people like? I was at Columbia for 5 days, and I spoke to a lot of people, interviewed people there, and a lot of these students that weren't involved were there. They were taking course in computer science. You know what I mean? They were majoring in computer science, and they weren't involved because they had a plan. Their plan was to work at Facebook or work, at Google, or start their own internet business. But there were a lot of business majors there. You didn't see a lot of journalists. The journalist students that are currently attending, they were there. They were there. They understood it. You know what I mean? And so were some of the people that were there pursuing law degrees. I I don't know. I don't know why. What happened? They were very fervent in the demonstrations and these students. And you're probably right. They have nothing to lose. I mean, at their age, what are they looking? What's coming forward right now? I'd hate to be 22 years old right now, to be honest with you. I like life, but not to have to go rewind back to 22 and what's going forth right now.
Yeah, no, I think that, for our generation and even the younger generations behind us, there was a sense that you were on some sort of upward trajectory.
Yeah.
Now I think it's the opposite. I think, it's like you can't think, geez, when I'm such and such an age, I'm going to have this and I'm going to have that and I'm going to be at this point in my life. And it's hard to make a plan when things are so uncertain. So,
The only thing that's certain right now is that everything's been exposed, in spite of the fact that they've cracked down this whole thing with Israel. It's all been exposed. The control over the Congress has all been exposed. The profit taking by military contractors. It's all been exposed right now. People are totally aware of it. I mean, because they're defending it so heavy-handedly. The powers that be, that they've exposed themselves. They've exposed themselves as being controlled, in the case of Palestine, as being controlled by Israel. They kind of like, that was a conspiracy theory, basically. Well, it's no longer conspiracy theory. It's straight right on the table, and it's naked, and you can see it.
I think maybe one of Roger's favorite quotes, but if it's not, it's a good one. And I'm paraphrasing the Frederick Douglass uh, quote where he says, "Power concedes nothing without concession." Is that
without a struggle.
without a
Never
struggle?
has, never will. Yes.
Never has, never will. And we're seeing that sort of on a magnified scale, I think, right now, where
But
you
it's being met the same way in the 1830s slavery was being met. We are at the same stage where Nat Turner was. You know what I mean? Where they're going to come crashing down on us. But it's going to be a long road right now if we get our act together and continue to fight and pass it on. And not going to happen in our lifetime. This we are at it. Roger said on my show yesterday, we are at it. We're all fighting an existential struggle on many levels at this point. And the only thing you can do if you're not here to see any change is make sure you pass the baton to the next generation, and hopefully they'll make more batons and pass it to others.
well, that therein gives me optimism because I think that's exactly what these young people are doing on these campuses.
I haven't seen it in a long time. This is the first time I've seen it like this, in spite of the pushback by the police, which the police in LA, they used to get them from the South during the 20s and 30s and give them batons, and they'd crack down in black and poor Chinese and Mexican communities. I mean, that's what we got right now. That police force in LA on steroids with the Ernst Röhm Nazi haircuts, with the batons and World War II German helmets cracking down. I mean, that's it's going to be they got to continue somehow. They're doing everything they can to put it out. You know what I mean? To put out the fire, and let's hope that the embers still burn and are not totally squelched. I don't know. I'm optimistic that this is happening right now, but I see the crackdown. I mean, 20,000 people today in London, in support of Palestine. 20,000, students today. So it's all over Europe, and Europe, of course, is become a totalitarian, entity, as the UK, with no free speech. The Magna Carta is nothing more than a unsightly museum piece at this point. And it's spreading to all these countries that are part of our orbit, so I don't know. I don't know where it's going. I like what I'm seeing. I don't like the pushback, but I do like what I'm seeing on these campuses, and maybe it will germinate, and there'll be a lot more demonstrations for, civil rights, prisoners' rights, environmental rights. There's a lot of things to be protesting right now. Homelessness in New York, people sleeping on the streets. Subway system is like the filthiest thing I've ever seen in my life. There's the infrastructure in the state of New York is horrible, and it's worse than the rest of the country. And $33 trillion in debt. Where are we going? Except for taking money from all of these exigencies domestically and putting them to kill people in Gaza and in Ukraine.
And of course, naturally, the rest of the world sees this, and
Right.
and which again is tragic because it takes away any sort of,
They don't like mirrors, okay? I mean, look what they get. They booted out Al Jazeera from Israel. They don't. Why do they boot them out? They want to see Al Jazeera do something positive. Stop murdering children in hospitals that are on incubators.
Yeah.
No.
Well, somebody once quite recently said that this situation with Gaza is sort of ripping the mask off the face of liberal democracy,
Right.
which I think is a good thing.
It's liberal to be calling it a liberal democracy. I'll tell you that. It's not. It's not, it's a facade of democracy. Yes, the mask is being pulled off, but
But there's a there's a sort of liberalism which
right,
has been manipulated for decades by just the very idea of being called anti-Semitic. I mean,
right,
that will take your average dyed-in-the-wool liberal like I vote for Democrats and I watch PBS and do all the
right.
right
That's
things and
right.
buy go to read Mother Jones and buy organic foods. That kind of caricature of a liberal uh, is deathly afraid of being called anti-Semitic. So
Right.
it's a perfect way to get people to shut up. But I think we're seeing through that now and
Well,
realizing,
we're saying deluge on a daily basis so far, as long as the internet is on is not totally repressed. We're seeing this happening on an hourly basis. Just look online, you'll see tons of photos of what's happening right now in Gaza. They can't stop it, but I'm sure they're trying to figure out a way to do it. You know what I mean? There must be a way
well,
that they can stop all images from coming out. And
kill all the journalists and
yeah,
shut down
they
the
killed
internet.
120 journalists as it is. They've killed like 10, 20 Al Jazeera journalists,
I
and
know.
and these are targeted killings, these are assassinations, and you know, um, and you know, whatever the veneer was of what is Israel is a liberal democracy, supposedly. Uh,
Well,
what
I don't think that. I
Yeah.
I, I
What they're doing
interviewed.
right now, you can be right. You can now say it. And you can now make the comparison to, what Germany did in World War. You can say it now. You can say what happened in Krakow, what happened on the Warsaw Ghetto, where 50,000 people, only about 15 of them, actually 20 or 50 people actually had arms. But, when it was all over after 30 or 60 days, they came in and they killed everybody there. Okay. And the Germans said it was a terrorist attack on them. So except October 6th, a terrorist attack after everyone in that ghetto for 4 years had been, brutalized and humiliated on a daily basis, not being able to go out, not being able to get fresh water, not being able to eat. They finally, a few of them actually had arms and they fought back. And that was called a terrorist a terrorist action. And so, what has happened for 75 years in Gaza, in Palestine, because that is Palestine. From the river to the sea is Palestine. And I'm going to go out and say it. You can call it anti-Semitic, right? But those are settlers.
Anti-Semitic.
They're
It's
colonizers, settlers that are occupying that land just because someone said you could do it, and gave them some guns to do it. And now they want it all. They want to get rid of all the people in Gaza and the West Bank and have beachfront property and rebuild it and have that Leaderschwarm, that living space. That's what it's the same playbook as what the Germans did. And
mm-hmm.
not all Germans felt that way, but
No, surely not.
wanted to do that. They got rid of the people that were opposed to it, and then they called them the good Germans. Well, then you can call these the good Israelis that stand by and allow this to happen. They're the good Germans right now. The Israelis that support this or just look the other way. And the good Germans are right here in the U.S. Or they're just participating in it, as in the case of Hakeem Jeffries and every one of the black legislators in the state of New York. It supports this
Mm.
genocide. That shows you how powerful the Israeli lobby is. That you can get all the black uh, Democrats in the House to support this genocide. You can get them. You got Hakeem Jeffries saying Israel now, Israel tomorrow, Israel forever. I mean,
Well, you got him. You got Richie Torres up in the
yeah,
Bronx.
but I mean, he's paraphrasing George Wallace when he says that Israel now, Israel tomorrow, Israel forever. I mean, so like I said, he's got about as much life as the Lincoln display at Disneyland, or you know, more energy and that whatever that huge puppet that they have, you know,
Never,
seems more at life than Hakeem Jeffries. Goes there, it's like somebody's controlling him, and they've sampled some sound effects and pumps out some words.
did you catch interview or last Sunday with, I think it was Face the Nation, Lindsey Graham?
Yeah, I've
Sort of,
seen excerpts of it.
I
I can't
was
watch him.
well. Basically, he said
I know what he's.
straight out
Yeah,
that, well, we were right to bomb the hell out of Japan with nuclear bombs. Why not do that to Gaza?
I said, yeah, anything you want, Israel, anything you want, you know.
It's nuts. Well, Randy, I know you got to get going in a second. So thanks for your time as always, and it's great to
Well,
see
we'll
you.
see what happens tomorrow in London, but I don't know. I'm cautiously optimistic, or I'm forever pessimistic. You know, worn out.
Mm.
My knees are wiped out. I can't. That truck. I just like. I got to get operations on both knees, unless I get some kind of miracle cure. Maybe I can get one of those. What's the role that Elmer Gantry will come and cure my knees? So I don't have to.
Oh, it's a great movie, Burt
Yeah.
Lancaster. Oh,
Burt Lancaster.
oh.
Yeah. What you got there, Bert? What
Um,
you got there, Bert? That's a funny gun you got there, Bert.
my
First you feel it.
favorite Burt
You're-
can my favorite Burt Lancaster role is The Swimmer. Did you ever see that film?
I like the Crimson Pirate.
The Swimmer is based on a John Cheever story about a guy who's mysteriously been away, and he's in his bathing trunks, and he shows at somebody's pool in sort of urban, Rico, Connecticut, and
Yeah.
they say, "What are you doing?" And he says, "I'm swimming home. I'm going to swim across every one of these pools all the way back across the valley back to my house." And you're like, where is he going and why is he doing that? He meets Joan Rivers on the way. It's fantastic.
I haven't seen that, but I will. I like Burt Lancaster was a real good man with great politics. Burt
Yeah,
Lancaster, and so did Kirk Douglas. You know.
absolutely. Yeah.
So,
All right, Randy. Well, thanks
all
for your
right,
time, bud.
Malcolm. All right, thank you, Liz.
Thanks,
Thank you,
Liz.
Malcolm.
Okay.
Thank you, Kingston. I'll be up to this week to get my air conditioning fixed at Everett Motors on
Oh,
Ulster. I always go, if you have a car problem, go there. Seriously.
you know what? My wife has a car that's failing, and I said, you got to go to this guy at Everett Motors, and she's like, well, I don't
Tell them you
know.
know me, all right?
Uh,
They are really it's like I mean I drive all the way up there, then go to one of these you know, places that totally rip you off in Brooklyn or the Bronx. I go, or in Manhattan, it doesn't matter.
How's your dog doing?
She's fine.
She's good.
Over here
All right.
listening.
Okay.
All right.
Thanks, Randy.
Thank you. All right.
I'll see you soon. Well, if you're up in Kingston and
I'll
you have,
see you at Adams. All right. I'm
if
gonna
you,
go.
yeah,
I'm gonna get a bowl of chili at Adams.
give me a shout. We'll meet up.
That's where I'm gonna go. I'm not gonna have. I'm not going to. I like it. I like the coffee shop there. I like that part of the city. What's it called?
Uptown.
The Rough Draft.
Oh, Rough Draft. Yeah,
Yeah, I like that place. I like Kingston, but I like the chili at.
Oh yeah, chili at Adams.
No, at Adams. Yes.
Yeah. No, I
Really?
know it well. I know it well.
I can't help it. I go to get all these things. I pass by that soup area. I see chili, Adams chili, and I always grab the 12-ounce one and eat it before I get on the road in the car.
Well, my grandmother taught me something. She said, always eat before you go shopping for groceries.
That's a good
Because
idea.
when you shop on an empty stomach, you buy too much stuff and you're like, you
Good
just
idea.
like buy everything that moves.
Doesn't matter if I'm full or not. You know, it's like when I go to Bread Alone, I'm going to get their sourdough baguette, right? I don't care if I've just eaten a ton of fish. I'm going to get that sourdough. Who would eat a ton of fish?
I don't know.
If I had just eaten Moby Dick, I'd still get one of their
I would
baguettes.
still get a baguette and
Same thing.
a bowl of chili.
Side of beef, I would still get that chili to go because You can smell it. There's 5 big, what do you call those canisters,
Those vats.
vats of soup, and I'm not going to get the Italian wedding soup, and I'm not going to get the Manhattan clam chowder soup. I
I
don't
make
care.
a pretty good pea soup too, by the way.
Split pea soup.
Yep. I do a
Okay.
good one.
Yeah. All right.
All right. Take care.
I don't know how it morphed into this, talking about suits, but it's a good way to end. All right.
It's a good way to
We'll
end.
cook
Right.
right now. We'll try to make Adam's style chili.
Okay.
All right.
Bye, Randy.
Good plant-based meat. See you later.
See ya. Bye.